have every day trying to manage its work. So today we have three speakers, Rebecca, Shannon, and Claudia. Rebecca and Shannon are from Wikimedia Ireland, and Claudia is from Wikimedia Romania and Moldova. Today they will share all the hard work, all the experience, all the challenges and good things that are happening in their affiliates, and they will share their, let's say it like tips and tricks on how to manage and how to do all of that stuff that small affiliate needs to do today. So this learning clinic is called Managing Small Affiliates with Wikimedia Ireland and Wikimedia Romania and Moldova. And as I say, we will have a lot of questions today. So I would like to ask all of you that during the session we will have during all the questions, please add your thoughts into the chat so we can discuss about it and we can talk a little bit more. Today we are here to learn. And today we are here to feel free to ask anything and to talk about anything related to small affiliates. So please do not hesitate to put anything that's on your mind related to this learning clinic into chat. So before we start this learning clinic, let's talk a little bit more about Let's Connect culture. So this program is a peer learning program that the whole idea behind it is to connect between each other, to talk, to learn, to share our experience, to exchange our knowledge, and to feel free to connect, to ask anything, to maybe ask for some info or for anything you would like to know more about. So let's say that Let's Connect is some kind of safe space we use to share our experience and knowledge. So this program is operated by Joint Community Foundation Initiative, and it's in the phase number 2. We're also here to have a good time. So please, as I say, feel free to join us in today's discussion, to share your opinion, to share your thoughts, and feel free to join us in our next activities we will have, and we will inform you about them as well. We are here to make people feel comfortable and confident to share. We are here to learn, and I think one of the easiest ways to learn is by asking questions. So please feel free to ask us anything. That's why we have our amazing speakers today. And we also have something to learn from anyone, no matter the experience. Very often, it's good to hear opinion from someone who maybe has no that much experience, or maybe is new in something, or maybe they would like to try something new, because we are getting some new perspective. So feel free to share all your thoughts, all your ideas, or all your challenges, and all the things you would like to maybe learn today with us, so we can manage this learning clinic very well, and we can give you the answers that you would all like to know a little bit more about. I'm very happy to see you, all of you today, and I'm very happy to see the initiative that you would like your affiliates to grow. So I'm sure we will have one successful learning clinic. And why are we here today? As I said many times, we are here to learn, but also to be aware of the skills and principles that we have to be able to manage small affiliates. Sometimes, so sometimes it's much easier to manage like a bigger affiliate, because you are focusing, your job is to focus on only one let's say, field or spectrum of work. But when you are managing a small affiliate, when you want it to grow, you have to do so many things. You have to know how to promote, you have to know how to apply for a grant, you have to know so many stuff. So that's why we are here to talk about today. But also we are here to connect, as the whole point behind this program is to connect, to get to know each other a little bit better. So even after this learning clinic ends, we can still can talk. We will still have the knowledge of, we know who to ask for some info. So let's connect, let's learn, let's ask questions, and let's feel free to connect today. We have some agenda established. This is the introduction part. After this, we will have some interesting icebreaker for 15 minutes. After that, we will have some sort of panel discussion with our amazing speakers for 50 minutes. I would like to ask you again, feel free to put your thoughts in the chat. After that, we will have some Q&A or some kind of discussion where our speakers will answer their questions. And at the end, we will share resources, we will share
He's a
tools,
teacher of literature. He
we'll
lives and
share
works in Liverpool.
tools and
He's an
some
Englishman.
templates and everything.
He isn't
So
exactly a handsome.
and we will share the document with you. We will ask you to put your tools, your templates, your guidelines into that document so we can all learn together.
She's a beautiful young.
Close, we'll have a closure at the same end. Now I will give my word to Lucy, and let's join this icebreaker.
Thank you, Gorana. I picked a silly icebreaker today because it's Friday, and I thought it might be nice to think about something not work related before digging into some of the more challenging things we'll be talking about today. So the first part of this brief icebreaker, I would like to know, if you'd like to share in the Zoom chat, what is your favorite season of the year and why? And the reason I'm asking this is that spring has sprung in the UK. We've got lots of daffodils, lots of little crocuses poking up through the ground. And it made me think about the change of seasons and what people like. Manavpreet says spring. Excellent. A spring fan there. No seasons in Daniel's City. Jessica says summer. Yes, Jessica, you're a tropical being in Europe. Spring, winter, Sandra, controversial, a winter person there. Yeah, winter as long as you're inside and warm. Yeah, Gorana for summer. No one's giving any love to autumn here. We're all just, we don't like autumn. I think we have one there from Galahad. Amazing. Yeah, we're a very wintry group. Interesting, because this is an icebreaker, you know. Easier to wear more clothes in the cold. Yeah, I would rather be cold than too hot, I think. The smells of autumn, yes, very evocative. I like that. I myself, I'm an autumn person. I like when the leaves turn and things get a little bit cooler. And yeah, the colors, I think, Claudia, are really nice. I used to live in Canada and they always had a very good autumn. Yeah, spooky season, they call it in North America. Summer, because of watermelon, nice. We don't get a lot of colors in the UK, Owen, that's true. Ngozi, raining season, I plant vegetables, green and smelling fresh. Yes, that is a lovely sensation. Amazing. Well, while we're thinking of positives, I have one last thing to ask you before we hand over to the speakers, for Gorana and I to ask some questions. We're going to talk a lot today about challenges, but is there anything that you think is really good about working as a small affiliate? What is an advantage? What do you like about it? If anyone has any thoughts on that and they'd like to share it in the chat, that would be wonderful. So what do you like about being a small affiliate? What is a good thing about working in that way? Before we delve into the challenging aspects of it. You get to know your volunteers intimately. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Seychelle. There's a much more immediate connection there. You can be friends with all, yep. Able to know everyone. Yeah, it's really interesting that all three of the first responses there are the same thing. Ngozi, the question is, if you work in a small affiliate, what is something you like about that? What is a good thing about being a small affiliate? What's an advantage? Oh, you get to do things beyond just Wikimedia projects, learning from everyone. Small goals. Yeah, being able to set small things that you can achieve is important. Chinmayi says, communication and taking everyone's opinion on certain things is effective. Understanding different perspective is important. And Atiba says, easy to manage, which I think is another, feeds in quite well to what Chinmayi says, which is you can understand and communicate and manage opinions much better in a smaller group. Galahad says the interesting thing about a small affiliate is the capacity for growth you can have, the learning you can achieve from other big affiliates and understand their problems and try to avoid them. That's wonderful, Galahad. And I love what Nada has just said. Everyone is nice when you are small. I'm quite a short person, so I like to think that everyone is nice because I am short, but sometimes they're less nice. Ngozi, I love that. We know ourselves and function as a family. That's wonderful. I really like that response. Well, I'm glad I've got you all thinking optimistically about the good things. Simplicity, lower burden of expectations. Most of the volunteers can join Wikimedia events when they need limited number of people. Yeah. Trustworthiness. Yeah, you can't hide behind a lot when you're in a smaller affiliate. Excellent. Feel free to keep sharing these in the chat. It's nice to know that it's not all challenging, that there are some really strong points to being smaller affiliates. And I'm really excited today that we're able to talk to Rebecca and Shannon and Claudia about this. Garana and I are going to take turns asking a couple of questions for discussion. This session will run for about 50 minutes. It will be quite an open discussion. For the speakers, please feel free to chip in at any point if you've got something to add to what you're I've lost my words and say what your friend is saying. I hope we're all friends, what your friend is saying. Garana has also set up a retro board and we're going to pop a link to that in the chat. The retro board is your place to put any questions or observations you might have. There's translation available on this board as well of all the questions that we've asked. And it's yours to do what you would like with in terms of asking questions that you would like the speakers to cover later on. You are also welcome to ask questions in the Zoom chat. And what we'll do is we'll have half an hour for audience discussion and experience sharing after the main discussion. So, Rebecca, Shannon, and Claudia, my first question for you today is, what are some of the principles that guide your work as a smaller affiliate? I'm happy for you to decide who'd like to respond first.
Who's going to be the brave one? I'll go first. So I am the chair of Wikimedia Community Ireland. I work, Rebecca and I work together. And I think for us as a small affiliate, some of the things that we focus the most on are specifically around open licenses here in Ireland, because it is quite restrictive, especially with when we first started in 2014. One of the first things we did was Wiki Loves Monuments, and we got a list from the government with monuments in Ireland. And we found that most of the information that was found on there was under a protected license that we couldn't use on Wikipedia. So it took a lot of work for us to kind of move that over into an open license that we could use. So one of our main focuses has been since then to encourage government groups and GLAMs to work in an open license and to work with us to learn how to work with an open license. I guess one of the other kind of things that we focused on as a small affiliate of a small country is around our languages. So English is our primary language, though we do have Irish is one of our official languages, and then we have several small languages that are similar to Irish. And that's something that we've really struggled with as well, because I don't speak Irish. As you can hear, I'm originally from America. Rebecca has basic Irish, but it's not, conversational, I would say. So that's something that we're looking to make those connections a little bit better as we move forward as a group. I love being part of a small affiliate. It has its challenges, don't get me wrong. We've had a lot of struggles, and we will talk about those a little bit later. But I love the small community feeling that we have with our group, and I don't think you get that in a big affiliate.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for being brave.
Claudia, go ahead.
I was going just to, do the other end and then go back to to Ireland. So hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here and learn together with you. I'm coming from the user group Romania and Moldova Wikimedians, and I'm actually relatively new to the user group, but I'm coming from a background of working in NGOs. And as a volunteer, editing Wikipedia was never in my mind connecting to any structure that has, strategic planning, management, and other issues. It was always about just, popping in and editing an article until we figure out the opportunity to actually do more. And then actually the value that I found in the community that I found it there, it was there. It was this dedication to learning. And I think that goes to everyone in the community. If we are part of the community, that means that we are open to learn. And, we definitely learn better things that are easier or are really connected to our values, to our practices, but we don't give up when we have to learn harder things, things that are not necessarily in our reach immediately. And I'm not sure how is it in other parts of the world, but Romania as a country has really big problems with education system, with digital skills, literacy levels. We are really behind in terms of European countries. So for our country to find the communities who's open to learning and also learning about open knowledge, this is very valuable. And I think the user group as a group survived and grew, and the community grew because people connected with on these values. And this is not a small thing. This is what I wanted to say, with the question about what's a really cool thing about a small affiliate is that you can really connect on core values, and then that will help you survive even hard times, economical or, other crises that we are going through.
Just to keep doing a sandwich, maybe that might be the way to do it. Keep Romania as a filling of the sandwich.
An affiliate sandwich.
So I suppose I kind of have two responses, kind of one from kind of my experience, having, along with Shannon, having founded the user group in 2014 and then becoming its first staff member in 2017 is, and I think what Shannon was really speaking to was how important allies are. If you're a small affiliate, you will be kind of part of an ecosystem, a community of other small charities, but also volunteer groups and interest groups. And when you're talking about a context that is as small as Ireland, about 5 million people, roughly, if you look at the statistics, about 500 to 600 people edit from Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, not the island, each month. It's quite a small user base, and it's probably never going to get very large. It's probably always going to be relatively small. So try and find those allies that you can then work with that have kind of communal goals. So open knowledge is one, Coder Dojo would be another one, but also kind of charities. Media literacy would be a big issue for us here as well, and there would be charities working with teens. So try to think of yourself not just as part of a Wikimedia movement, but as kind of a local community that has, even if your strategies and objectives aren't exactly the same, there's kind of a communal overarching goal. Or there's overlap in the work that you want to do. OpenStreetMap would be another very obvious one for us, and I know a lot of communities have experience working with them. For me, I spent my 20s, it was the recession, it was part of the global recession here in Ireland, so I spent a lot of my time in like cooperative movements and free art spaces, and one of the things that I was introduced to was the law of 2 feet, which is kind of yeah, Claudia knows what I'm talking about. It's a way of organizing generally volunteers, groups of people. And the idea is that if you find yourself in like a meeting or organizing something and you're not invested in it, you're not interested in it, you take your 2 feet, you get up and you walk away, and you find a conversation or an initiative or something that you want to work on. But equally, it means that when you're doing something, whoever turns up, because I think we can get kind of caught up in ideas of committees and very strong kind of hierarchical structures. You know, we have to have a chair and we have to have a board and we have to have a subcommittee that looks after this, but really just work with the people who show up. And for some people that might be once every 6 months, for others that might be every single day. And it's important to just kind of work with who's there, who's engaged with you, and work with them on that basis, and how much that they can dedicate to a group. But I think it's a really useful, especially if you're not in that space of formalizing, that there are these methods of kind of thinking about organization that don't involve electing people and getting people to sign a charter or whatever it is. So I kind of keep those principles in mind, and it helps with some of the frustration maybe sometimes with working in a volunteer, with volunteers or as a volunteer, where people's capacities will fluctuate, and they won't always be able to dial in or have the capacity to work with you as consistently as they would want to necessarily.
Those were just some really lovely answers. I loved hearing you all talk about the themes I got strongly were media literacy, community, and what you said about the principles of language, I think is really important. I'm thinking about an international kind of framework. And I love the idea of work with the people who show up, because we spend a lot of time in wishful thinking, I think, rather than appreciating what we have. And I think that's a really nice principle to work with. I will pass over to Garana now for our next kind of topic.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you all for sharing your thoughts about our first answer today. I think it's very important to understand that as a smaller affiliate, sometimes you cannot represent your work as well by numbers, by metrics, by telling how many editors showed up on some event, for example, because when you're small affiliate, as Rebecca said, we have to work with what we have, and we have to manage everything and be grateful at the end on the things we have done and we have accomplished. But now let's talk a little bit about challenges. As we all know, as smaller affiliate, we are all challenging some different things than bigger ones. For example, like numbers, metrics, we cannot express our activities and all the effort we give in numbers, for example. So I would like to ask you, what is your biggest challenge, one or two, and how do you handle that? How do you manage to sort that out? Maybe Shannon, we can do a sandwich affiliate thing again.
Okay, so in Ireland, I think our biggest challenge is our small volunteer base. Because as Rebecca said, we are quite a small island, 5 million people. We only have about 500 to 600 active editors in the Republic. And you're only going to get a small percentage of those editors to come out and volunteer for you. So one of the things that we've done to kind of overcome that issue is, as Rebecca pointed out earlier, we started working with allies. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to maybe hold an event ourselves and get people to come, we started holding events with other groups, maybe in a GLAM, maybe with an ally who thinks the same way we do, OpenStreetMap or Open Knowledge or something like that, so that we can tap, because the same people that are going to be interested in what we're doing are interested in what that group is doing. So instead of trying to find these people, let's go to the places where they already are and build those relationships. That has helped us a lot. The other way that we've done that is we have a big focus on education, and our educational outreach is probably one of our biggest programs besides competitions, contests like photo contests. So we've gotten a lot of traction through the education system and reaching out to educators, and not necessarily making them come into our group and become part of our group, but empowering them to do the things that we want to see out there. Teach them how to teach others how to edit Wikipedia or do something on Commons. They don't necessarily have to come to our meetings and do things through us. We give them the and let them do it on their own. So those are two of the ways that we've kind of addressed the issue with lack of volunteers. Now, we're still struggling. I think we always will struggle because we are a small group. So we just have to find different and more creative ways to bring people, to spread our message and to get them to spread it.
If I'm in the middle of the sandwich, I would definitely echo both the idea of partnership and working with partners, and also working with going to the groups and education programs where you can help. It is a struggle for us as well, but I think something that comes from how should I say this? So culturally speaking, in my country, people are used to follow a leader. If there's no leader, what are we doing here? That's general. So I'm okay to do my own stuff, but if you want me to do more, I need a leader to follow. That's basically, it's part of our culture and tradition and communist history and many things that we have. One thing that I really valued coming in the user group is just the idea that, it's a democratic space. We all can do what we want to do to help. And then we can ask for help. And, we take lead on projects, not on the whole community. And I think this is where actually the user group gets to have a little difference with the community of volunteers, because volunteers are looking for leadership and we are just providing support. And that's why I think the way we develop I think it's organic, I think it's healthy, because it builds on democratic values and a healthy way of growing. But it takes longer time to change the perception. We had a course in the past months, and we had this feedback that, I was actually looking for somebody to check on me, to really show me the way and to continuously show me what to do. Whereas we were like, come on, join, we can show you how, what's the process of learning. We can help you with the learning process. But why you're here, it's actually on you. I'm not here to tell you why you're here. I'm not here to, I'm here to support you in the process. And I think this is hard for us as a community, not just the user group. On the user group part, I think And it connects with my background in civil society in Romania, working for NGOs. It's the decision of how solid you would like your organization to be. Are you start thinking about its sustainability or not? Is it something that, it's on your mind? So in 5 years, how do you imagine your user group? These are hard questions and very uncomfortable. I hate them. But on the other hand, like if I cannot really think about a future for my organization, who will think about it? So in NGOs where I worked, we had issues where, in 5 years, the organization did not exist anymore. We have many examples, from civic society. An affiliate can and has the support through the grants, through the community, to do this planning and strategic development in a healthy way. But it cannot be done from outside. It has to be done from within. And I'm going back to my previous argument about not needing just one leader to lead this. Because as we've seen working with volunteers, if that person leaves for whatever reasons, health problem, personal problem, whatever gets more important in their lives than this project, the whole group gets blocked. This is not a healthy way of developing any kind of a structure really based on one leader. We have to develop each other's leadership skills and work together. Those are the two parts that I think are important to develop. And one aspect that is really hard for us, it's the time that needs to be put in for this type of learning. Because this cannot be done in a 2-day workshop. I'm sorry. And it won't be done in a month. It will be done in years of planning, of trying, of failing, of, as long as we are here for the right reasons and we are in the process of learning and we have the support, and, we are also transparent about our process, this will take us where we want to go. But again, where do we want to go? This is a question that you have to answer yourself. I mean, nobody can answer this but you. And I really underline this in a democratic consultant way of deciding this, debating the how a future you would like to build together.
Thank you,
I
Claudia.
would definitely. Yeah,
sorry, this
Grant.
was really amazing. Thank you, Shannon and Claudia as well. Rebecca?
I would really echo the problems with having one person. And I think it's something that, we've definitely become aware of, or we've always been aware of with our group. But increasingly with I suppose, me being in post now 6 years, as a single employee, means that if I disappear tomorrow, a lot of institutional and intangible knowledge will go with me, and that's not sustainable. So, and we've been quite upfront, I think, about that for a very long time. I will try not to disappear, but hey, you never know. I'm like the Easter bunny. I might just, or the Easter rabbit. I might just, be a seasonal thing. I think what Shannon and Claudia have mentioned, I think, are really solid, and I think I definitely echo our experience here in Ireland, and with all the kind of intricacies of capacity and sustainability, and kind of worries about how an organization will change, or will it still exist in a number of years' time. And I think one of the things that we inherited somewhat, when we were started in 2014, the main structure of organizations was chapters. And I think we felt a lot of pressure to become a chapter. And you will notice that we have not, despite the embargo on chapters being founded, actually being lifted within, the last few years. But we kind of felt that chapters were the ultimate goal. And I think what's really good about the Wikimedia movement is that we seem to have moved away from that. And we understand that the chapter is not the ultimate goal for every group all around the world, and it's just a bit too can be a bit too onerous to become a charity or, you know, kind of a group of that sort of standing, depending on where you are in the world. So I think kind of deciding upon that and having comfort in kind of the beauty of being small. And that's something that we came to over a long period of time. Actually, Owen, we've become a company limited by guarantee, but we weren't one starting out. So we started kind of a lighter type of structure in Ireland and then became one over time. So I think we definitely suffered from taking on a lot of complex notions very early on around governance and things like that I think we've shed then as kind of reality, or not quite reality, but as we kind of just became more comfortable in ourselves as a group, we realized that actually, no, we don't need to take on that level of complexity or I suppose very rigid structures that would come with certain types of organizational structure. I would say that one of the things that I would always tell people is that just because perhaps maybe you have lots of people editing within your region or your language, Wikipedians don't necessarily equal community. And the most productive the most productive volunteers that we've had have come to us as non-Wikimedians, or perhaps are very light touch, you know, they might do very little editing, but are invested in kind of the wider organizational goals of the Wikimedia movement as educators, as GLAM professionals, as volunteers, you know, within different contexts. So just because somebody isn't a Wikipedian doesn't mean that they can't bring an awful lot to the Wikimedia movement. And I think we got quite caught up in perhaps trying to recruit established Wikipedians into our group early on, and were quite disheartened by their reaction. I think a lot of the time, a lot of them were some of them were antagonistic. I would go so far as to say, of a group. And depending on people's contexts, you know, people come with all sorts of kind of baggage. And, you know, in Ireland, people would have very strong, perhaps political views around the European Union or Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And then they would start kind of, I suppose, projecting that onto us, on the events that we were choosing to do or the groups that we were working with, that sort of thing. So I would say don't get disheartened by that, and that, you know, community is what you make it to a certain extent. And, you know, people don't have to be, not to use too many euphemisms, but dyed in the wool. They don't have to be hardcore Wikipedians to be part of your community. And in those early years, we benefited hugely from partnership with Wikimedia UK. Our first editathons were hosted before we were a group, and by borrowing expertise from Wikimedia UK. So there's absolutely no shame in saying we don't have these skills. And I suppose we didn't necessarily think about it in those terms. The help was offered and we took it. We're lucky that there were people employed by Wikimedia UK at the time who were watching for potential partners in Ireland, people that they could work with. And, you know, you could say the relationship between the UK and Ireland isn't necessarily straightforward, but our groups have worked together very well. I know, Owen, it's a shock. And to take those offers when they're made, and especially if there's kind of a larger affiliate or a larger chapter that has the funding to, you know, pay for travel, pay for accommodation, pay for events. Quite often, if there is a joint goal, you can work together. And, you know, this is 2014 that I'm talking about. We weren't really thinking about hybrid events or anything like that. So we were far more, I suppose, conservative in what we were thinking about. If we were to start tomorrow, how Wikimedia UK could support events in Ireland would be far more flexible, one would imagine. So I think, you know, we've become more flexible over time, and I think we're still learning from that a little bit, because there is a small amount of envy of bigger groups and the, you know, the resources that they have, the staffing levels, and what they can leverage. as regards numbers of volunteers and things like that. But I would just kind of, I suppose, take comfort in the flexibility that we can have as a small group, and yeah, that there's beauty to be found in our smallness.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everyone, for sharing their opinion about this. I think we got to some really great points here, like having one person leading, having one person one person drops out, that everything is falling apart, maybe. Also about having allies, having great partnerships, having people, not only Wikipedians or Wikimedians, but GLAM experts or educational experts, that we can bring it to Wikimedia world. We can show them what Wikimedia movement is, because sometimes when you are working in a smaller affiliate, you're getting a lot of maybe institutions do not want to cooperate because they do not know about you. They do not believe in Wikipedia or Wiki world in general. So you have to explain a lot. We got to some really great points. We got some really great questions. Thank you for that. I hope we will be able to talk a little bit more about this later. And I will give my word to Lucy.
Thank you, Gorana. Just a little note to remind everyone that interpretation is available. We have some amazing translators working with us right now. But with that in mind, I would ask that myself and my fellow speakers remember to talk a little slower if we can, so that the translators can keep up with this really engaging, wide-ranging discussion. I have a question to ask that is, I find it quite an interesting question, and I want to say it's entirely related to your work as a small affiliate rather than your life as a whole. And the question I have is, if you could go back to the past and do anything different, what would it be? And I'm going to reverse the sandwich, and I'll start with Rebecca, then go to Claudia, then to Shannon. So if you could go back to the past and do anything different, what would it be? And I think this might follow on from what you were talking about there, Rebecca, with the early days of your work with Wikimedia Ireland.
I think it took us a long time to, and it's because the Wikimedia movement has diversified considerably. I mean, I don't feel like 2014 was that long ago, but it's almost a decade ago. And how the Wikimedia movement recognized affiliates, structures that exist internationally, has diversified and expanded so rapidly in that time. And when I think about the kind of the examples of organizational structure, of capacity, there weren't even really conversations that we were having necessarily, kind of in those early days when we were going from rapid grant to rapid grant. I can now see that if we were to set up today, we would have fantastic organizations to emulate, and not come with the burden of feeling like we needed to become a chapter, to become large, to have multiple staff members, to become a registered charity, to solicit our own donations. Because I think we did, even if we weren't necessarily fully aware of it, I think we did feel that pressure early on to take on, we had bylaws that we drafted at one point, which were far too complicated for a group of our size to deal with, around AGMs and quorums, so how many people would have to be at the AGM and that sort of thing. And there are things that we have come to since, around kind of the level of accounting that we engage with, and that, but that is, we built up to that point rather than taking it on right at the start. And I think not comparing ourselves directly to Wikimedia UK or Wikimedia France, our kind of nearest European neighbors. Even though, we could say that, say, Wikimedia Norway, I would often look to as kind of, we're similar sized countries, somewhat differences around linguistics, but kind of parallels in history. But at the same time, we can't kind of do direct comparisons. And I think the Wikimedia movement has become far more comfortable in that. And I've seen it in how grants have been processed, and how the grant committees, the kind of questions they ask. So while I know there's still quite a lot of frustration sometimes around perhaps not fully understanding context or appreciating international differences, we have come a long way. So I think if I was to talk to myself in 2014, I just kind of say, we can slow down. It will come. And that, we did have some, I don't know if we had necessarily very large failures, but we definitely had, say, events that didn't attract an awful lot of people, even after they'd been featured in the Irish Times, which is kind of a paper of record in Ireland. That was one, it was an early disappointment for me, I have to, that I remember. But to learn from that and then to think about, okay, well, if these type of events don't work, let's try something else. As Shannon was saying, let's partner with people. So rather than building something and hoping people will come, why don't we go to where people already are? I think that's the main two things that we've learned over the years, or I have.
Thank you, Rebecca. Before we move on to Claudia, could I just ask Eduardo, there is a Portuguese channel. If you want to tune into that, in the interpretation button at the bottom of the screen, there is a Portuguese channel if you'd like to pop into it there. And just to remind everyone, we've got French, Portuguese and Spanish interpretation available.
Lucy, sorry, just to clarify, it's Eduardo's actually the interpreter. Just Eduardo, you're in the wrong channel. If you can switch to the Portuguese channel. Sorry.
Owen
Okay.
says he's in the right one now. Excellent.
Thank you. Okay.
I felt like a supermarket announcer, like, could the owner of the Ford Fiesta please come to the car park? Happy to help. Claudia, I'm going to pass over to you.
Yes, as I mentioned briefly, I am quite new to the user group. Actually, I'm a member of the user group for almost a year, not even a full year. So I did not make a lot of mistakes. I did make some mistakes, but I think in terms of the history of the user group, and that's something that actually I've learned, that it's an issue that comes up in many affiliates, is solving conflicts. That is not something that everybody knows. Very few people actually are good at that. And in small communities, small affiliates, if conflicts arose and there's no healthy way of solving that, that gets to have severe consequences on the community. And I'm quite actually surprised that this is not a bigger discussion and training opportunities provided in the community for this, given how often I heard this happening in other places. And this has, a number of effects, not only on the affiliates, but also on the structure of the community. And it can get to, even what type of articles are created. Women in our community are very few. And actually, me meeting Rebecca last year in the summer before I started my managing grants was really providing me courage to jump in and try to work with a community that was mostly masculine, and I heard quite aggressive. And just jumping in to manage project, manage money, which, it's not something normal, not normal in a way that it has not been done like this before. It was really, really hard. And it just happened that I was in a right moment of my life when I could just, I'm going to jump, I'm going to do it. But not everybody is. And it's not fair to put that pressure on, people who would like to help. Just because they are not editors, just because, they don't know how things are done, how things have been done, and so on. And this continues to be an issue with us because, this is not how we've done things before. So do I dare to do something else, or do I just keep up what we've been doing? And that's a personal decision. But again, those personal decisions get to be made easier if you have the support of a partner who says, I'm here. If you need me, you can email me at any time. And that's why it's very important to have meetings like this to understand that, it's a struggle, but we are all learning. One other thing that I minimize and I would do differently is really budget the time in a grant. The time that you actually need to do things. And this is something hard. I find it very hard because if you change the mindset from being a volunteer to being a manager of a grant, of a user group, or whatever, it's a different mindset in terms of time. So I can definitely do this, for free if I could afford it, but I cannot afford it. So then I decided to pay myself or to budget some time for me for the management time. But then I actually never got to budget the whole time because I know I'll do it anyway. And I end up working more than I actually budget for. And that's actually on me. It wasn't anybody saying, you cut, that's too much, that's not, it's just me don't putting in the budget, the time, and also the time to learn that you have to put in. So if you're going to learn things, it's taking time. So I'm not just saying budget the money, it's also budget the time to make sure you are processing everything that's happening. It's interesting because I've never talked to Rebecca about this growing to be a larger affiliate. I've never been in that process, but coming from an NGO perspective, in Romania, many NGOs during the COVID pandemic had to close down. They did not survive. And as it happens, I was part of an NGO that not only survived, but managed to adapt and develop. So I've seen what it means to have a strong team and push through hard times. And that's why from that moment on, a single leader is not a solution. You have to have a group of people and you have to have the trust. I think somebody else, Tebogo, I think mentioned earlier, the trustedness of a small affiliate that can be scaled up if done properly in time with the support. And so just, I guess, scaling just on project and not scaling on the team is one other mistake that I've done. Just thinking, we can do more, but with the same people. No, you cannot actually do more with the same people. You need more people, and you need to reach out as early as you can to get those people. So I actually did a lot of mistakes in a year. Happy to share, though.
Thank you, Claudia. Shannon, do you have anything to add about what you might go back and change or tell yourself in the past?
Yeah, so I'll follow up on what Rebecca was saying, and I'll be very brief about it because a lot of it's repetitive. But I think having been there from the start, as Rebecca said, it was her, myself, my husband, and one other person who started the group. I think I would want to go back now and tell us to find our identity first. What do we want to do as a group? Because I don't think that we thought about that enough, about what kind of things did we want to do. We just wanted to start the group. And the first thing we did was Wiki Loves Monuments, which was great. And it was a great learning experience for us. But then we weren't sure what to do after that. And I feel like it wasn't until 2017, when we finally got a grant where we could hire somebody, that we finally started to actually talk about what do we want this group to accomplish. So I would go back to 2014 and just have us spend a little bit of time talking about what are our goals and how do we get there, and know that the goals we have in 2014 are not going to be the same as the goals that we have in 2023.
Those were really useful reflections. Thank you all. I'm going to pass back to Garana, and just to say we're getting a lot of questions in the chat, which is lovely, and in the retro board, which is fantastic. And we will open up for questions in about 10 or so minutes time. So thank you for bearing with us. It's nice to see so many people rearing to go with questions to ask. So Garana.
Thank you, Lucy. And I'm very happy to be a part of this discussion. Because, for example, from my point of view as a part of Wikimedia Serbia, we are a chapter, but we are still smaller affiliate. And sometimes we are also feeling a little bit intimidated by bigger ones, or we had some situations like we were cooperating with one very big affiliate, and they were talking, oh, we will talk with our marketing team about that, or with our other team about that. And we were like, okay, but we are all doing that by ourselves. Like, I'm the marketing team as well. So sometimes we can be a little bit intimidated. And I wanted to ask you, how are you feeling when, as a smaller affiliate, maybe surrounded by bigger ones, or having cooperation with bigger ones? How do you feel your position there? Maybe we can start with Claudia here.
Yes. So as I was saying, I was a volunteer, and last year or a little bit earlier, I found out about this opportunity to apply for grants, even as an individual. So this is what actually I did. I was, volunteering, working on one lib, one ref type of activities. And then I just applied for a research grant because it was connected with my work. And that got me started to figure out, what an affiliate is, because I didn't know what an affiliate was. I participated in a number of events over the summer, and figure out there are small affiliates and large affiliates, and there are just volunteer-run affiliates and paid staff structures. And this was, wow, that's an ecosystem of it, of this whole community. And I think this is very good. It's very healthy, but it also reflects on a very, very superficial, if you want, analysis. It really reflects the development of civic society in each country. The more democratic the country, the longer the history of a democratic structure in that country, the healthier and the stronger is the affiliate structure. Again, it's very superficial, but it kind of, I don't have very strong points to contradict this. So organizing communities is a skill that develops in time. We are not born with it. We are born with family kind of connection, but not community-wide. And that gets to be developed in time. And for us, this did not happen organically. We were, I came in an organization that worked on small grants only. And I kind of proposed a big grant as an outsider. The surprise was that our affiliate has not developed partnership with other affiliates. And this was something that I was like, given how big the ecosystem of affiliates is in the community, I was really expecting to have more connections between affiliates. And I'm not sure if something that has to do with our user group that has not been developing project in common. We are actually covering 2 countries. So that's different from other user groups. We are developing projects like that. And we've been thinking about building more projects with our neighboring affiliates, with Ukraine, with Hungary, maybe with Bulgaria, if I get to meet somebody from there. But this is like in a planning phase. I have no idea how to do that. How to, we can both start discussing and then budget together and then work together on it. On the other hand, one thought that I have, and I think Rebecca mentioned this earlier, is how you can actually not only learn from a larger affiliate, but also like show the larger affiliate that in order for you to do a project, you can actually extend a hand and help an affiliate, like, kind of a mentorship project. One aspect that we were actually thinking is working with the Roma community in Romania. And this would be like such a great project, and we could do so many things. I'm not sure about the results. I cannot really promise that we're gonna shake the whole thing, but definitely that's a path that we are thinking about going. But actually we are small now. We are too small to do that on our own. And unless there's another affiliate that would like to cover this and we can start thinking and planning together a project, we will not actually make very soon very impactful steps in that direction. And if it's not a priority for us as a community, then it's not going to happen. The big goals that we set in the movement strategy, those are big. Like no single affiliate would be able to do them. And I think it has a lot of value to practice that in, we are going to have our community work project, but we're also going to reach out to, bring somebody in a visit, go there and visit our friends from a small affiliate who will never have money to do a conference there. Like thinking about this continuously, I think would be helpful.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you very much for this. And in terms of Let's Connect, Wikimedia Serbia is organizing international editathon dedicated to Roma Day, to International Roma Day. So maybe we can start doing that and connect between our affiliates. Now, maybe Rebecca can give your opinion about this question.
I'm just writing down International Roma Day. Important. I suppose there's two things that kind of come to mind. One of the things we do suffer, and I use that word kind of lightly, within our group is being an English-speaking country and being a very small English-speaking country, which means that on English language projects, the effect that we make is small in comparison to the UK, or groups in the United States, or possibly Wikimedia Australia. As an editor group or as a group of volunteers or Wikimedians, it's a small effect. As we've been able to put more resources to Irish language activities, we have been able to affect an awful lot more change, and not necessarily on Wikipage itself, which is the Irish language Wikipedia, but in spaces in which we talk about minority languages. So Irish is in a good position in that it is an official language of Ireland. It is all documentation in Ireland is to be produced bilingually. Sorry, that's my cat running away in the background. If you hear noises, it's cats playing. I apologize. So our Irish is the language is in a good place. It's also an official language of the European Union now, so it gets an awful lot of funding and perhaps a profile that an awful lot of other languages don't receive. But I suppose it means that different projects and different initiatives have been tried in Irish, and it can be used as an exemplar or an example language as to how certain strategies could be implemented in other language Wikipedias. We also, there are other kind of, I suppose, sister languages that are smaller than Irish. So Wikipede itself is, so the Irish language Wikipedia is about 58,000 articles. But for example, there's Irish Manx, which is a related, it's MANX, it's a related language, which has about 6,000. So we are the larger group, depending on how you divide up the groups. So we're very small in English, but we're larger in minority languages. So thinking about where you have influence and where you have capacity and where we can leverage certain conversations that are happening. And as Owen has said, Celtic Knot has been a fantastic kind of spark for an awful lot of that. And I think I had a second point, but I've forgotten it since, so I will leave it at that.
Well, we will have questions after this, so feel free to share. But this is a very good perspective on whether you are maybe small in some fields, like maybe like a smaller affiliate, but being big in some language areas. So Shannon, can you please share your opinion with us before we go to questions? Thank you.
Sure. I guess the only thing that I can add to what Rebecca has said would be in the context of our relationship with Wikimedia UK, specifically with providing events and other outreach products up in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, but is on the island of Ireland. So one of the things that we found when we started this group and started talking to Wikimedia UK is that there wasn't much of a presence in Northern Ireland. So we were uniquely positioned, being on the same island as Northern Ireland, to be able to go up to Northern Ireland and run events. It was much easier for Rebecca to get on a train in Dublin to go up to Belfast than it would be for somebody in the UK to maybe get on a plane in London and fly either to Dublin or to Belfast to put on an event. Keeping in mind that this was also before hybrid events became very popular. So almost all of our early events in the North were face-to-face. So at first, when we came into this context, we felt like the little cousin of the UK. And if you know about the relationship, the historical and the political relationship between the UK and Ireland, you'll understand that it hasn't always been the best relationship. We haven't always been kissing cousins. But we were in this unique position that we had something that the bigger affiliate needed and was looking for. So once we realized that, I felt it was very empowering for us that, you know, we've done something that this big affiliate wasn't able to do. And I think it deepened our ties with them and made us feel on more equal grounds with them than we would have been before. I'd say we're in a really, really good consensual relationship with Wikimedia UK right now. And I think our interaction with Northern Ireland has only made that connection stronger. So if you have bigger affiliates near you, see if there's something that you can offer them that they can't do.
That's a very good point, Shannon. Thank you very much. And thank you all for answering our questions, being prepared. Now we are going to next part of these learning clinics, and that those are the questions that our participants asked during this clinic. So maybe we can start with the first one on retro board we have, and that is, how do we ensure the knowledge is retained during leadership transition? So leadership transition is happening from time to time. Maybe one person, as you mentioned before, has to drop out for some reason. How do you ensure that all the knowledge is being transitioned to the next person? Maybe Shannon, you can start.
So that's something that we're really starting to think about as a group. Rebecca mentioned this earlier. She is the only employee and has been the only employee since 2017. So she gets a lot of support, obviously, from our volunteers and from myself and from our vice chairs. But she is Wikimedia Ireland. Anybody who knows about Wikimedia Ireland, they know Rebecca, right? They don't know me, they know Rebecca. So if we were to lose her, that's a lot of connections lost. So how do we make sure that that doesn't happen? Well, I think we need to bring in more people. I think we need to think about growing as a community and possibly hiring more people to kind of give her the backup. And it's not fair on Rebecca for her to have to do everything. So maybe have that, have somebody come in so we can have that separation, maybe get the admin stuff off of her back and let her focus on the program stuff. I think the other thing that we've been pretty good at, though we probably could get better, is document everything. Document, document, document. At the beginning of our journey as a group, we were really good at documenting our meetings and posting minutes to everybody who attended and to the wider community. And then for a while, we kind of got away from that and stopped doing that. And then recently we've picked it up again, and we're actually becoming better at it than we were before. So I think those are the two things for us as a group that we need to focus on now, is make sure we're documenting everything and then bring in other people so that if, God forbid, something should happen to Rebecca, the whole thing doesn't just implode.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Maybe Claudia, as someone who, let's say, recently came into the movement, what is your opinion about retaining knowledge and transitioning?
So I would definitely echo documenting everything as much as possible. And this is something that I really liked with the grants, that, you can find the grant online, you can find the reports online, everything is there. So there's no way to go around it. Actually, I have an example from my previous job, where I actually got to manage a team. And when I got on the job, I had an empty desk. I had nothing documented about the history of that organization, and it was a big organization. And at that moment, when I was getting in and didn't know anything, and people were not really sharing a lot, because it wasn't a Wikimedian community. So I actually said that wherever I will be in a job and whenever I leave, I will leave left things documented in a condensed way. So not just here is the archive, good luck. But like the SWOT analysis of what we have at this point, if there's a strategic plan that we agreed and we worked on, put everything. And when I left the job, I actually put on the desk this document that I worked on, and also have I also did whenever I was asked about can you help, can you remind us, can you reconnect us, I would be that person to connect things. So that has to do, with the type of leadership that is organization has. And again, going back to the more distributed structure of leadership, that means that if one person leaves, the others can cover and can supplement what is left after a person is missing. The archives are good, but are very hard to be managed by a new leader. And with the rhythm that we are working, the changes that are happening in the society and in our lives, and even the grants timing, like people need to move very fast, and there is no time budgeted to learn about things. So sharing as much as you can, as early as you can, as often as you can seem vulnerable if you're, you know, managing a project, but can be very healthy for the group.
Thank you, Claudia. I can see we have 2 hands raised. I would just like to remind everyone that you can, when you're on mic, you can speak in French or Spanish, and we'll be able to listen in the English channel. So feel free to ask your questions in whichever language suits you best. So I'm so sorry if I mispronounced this. Azogbono, you were first with your hand there. So if you'd like to ask your question. Yeah.
Oui, vous m'entendez? Je suis Constant Azobodon. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Très bien. Merci beaucoup. Je vais me forcer à me faire comprendre. Moi, c'est Constant Azobodon. Je viens d'un petit pays, si vous connaissez l'Afrique, je viens d'un petit pays qu'on appelle le Bénin. Et je dois avouer que c'est la première fois où je commence par avoir l'impression de ne pas me sentir bien dans une communauté. Pourquoi je dis ça? Parce que avant mon arrivée, il y avait une communauté qui était installée et je veux profiter en même temps pour vous poser la question. Comment se fait-il? Si vous êtes dans une communauté, est-ce que vous avez déjà été confronté par le passé à une forme de leadership déjà installée qui refuse d'une manière ou d'une autre de laisser la place au nouveau et qui a les moyens et les astuces pour vous faire taire quand vous commencez par mener des actions ou quand vous n'êtes pas d'accord avec ce qu'il propose. Et aussi, dans le même temps, quelles sont les démarches appropriées? Parce que généralement, on prend le temps d'écouter plutôt la communauté déjà installée que de prendre le temps d'écouter le bénévole qui n'est pas forcément d'accord avec cette forme d'organisation imposée par le leadership ou bien par les leaders d'une communauté. Quand vous êtes, est-ce que vous avez déjà été confronté à cette situation? Et si oui, quelle a été la démarche que vous aviez déjà eu à adopter pour que la résolution de ces conflits d'une manière ou d'une autre soit résolue, d'autant plus que vous savez que vous vous prenez à une forme d'opacité qui a déjà eu à faire ses preuves depuis des années. Quand c'est comme ça, comment entreprendre ou bien quelle lutte vous avez déjà eu à mener par le passé afin de déboucher à une résolution plus nette et afin de rendre quand même tout ce qui incarne d'une manière ou d'une autre l'organisation ou le mouvement dans vos communautés en question. J'ai plusieurs questions, mais je ne veux pas monopoliser la parole. J'aimerais juste avoir ces pistes de solutions face à ces questions que je viens de poser. Merci.
There's a lot to think about there in terms of the dynamics of established affiliates and newer volunteer groups. Would any of our speakers like to address that?
Well, I can try to, just because I guess my previous lives before Wikipedia taught me a lot. I also have been in NGOs and in structures where this is happening a lot. Not here. Here I walk in a different space. But I think what's very valuable for me and makes me feel safer to try new things and courageous things like the things you want to do is the fact that there is an international community that's been doing more or less the same things. I mean, there are people in this great community that have been going through your struggles, and have survived. Like the fact that they are leading organizations now, for me, it's very inspiring. I'm sure some people did not make it. Some people left, but then we still have some success stories, which this did not happen in my previous organizations. In my previous organizations, whenever people had a different opinion or they were too young to have voices, they would be kicked out. Here, no. Here, there is this support network internationally, and you're speaking French. Like, you have to go to the French language conferences on Wikimedians. Like, you have to go every year for the next 3 years, and then you'll find many answers to your questions, because it's easier to just learn from the people that have been going through this. And also another thing that keeps me hopeful is the safe space policy that we are trying to implement as a movement, which again, it's kind of unique. I haven't seen it in my country in other places, where like, even that, though we disagree, we have different leadership styles, we have different objectives. While we are in this community, we should be civil and we should, work together for solutions. Even if you're uncomfortable that your leadership is challenged, even if your ideas are not considered the best by your community, we still should continue to discuss this. There's no my way or highway in this community. We don't sometimes know how to do that. That's why I'm mentioning the conflict resolution things. This is something that we learn in time. Sometimes we don't have the energy to do this, but coming from other places where I've seen this kind of conflicts being unsolved, I find it here, at least, we are trying as a community, and we have these guidelines for us as a community that we can go back to and say, yeah, maybe locally, we try to do things the old way, but there's a new way, there's a better way in which we want to grow as a community, as a global community. And in this global community, other ways of leadership might be successful. Let's try new things. So I'm not sure if I answer your question, but this is something that really, really helps me and gives me more energy whenever I have doubts about, hey, what am I doing here? It's definitely a good community to grow and build things together with.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you very much for your answer. And thank you for this really good question and really good point when we are not feeling maybe that welcome, or we are having some doubts about other editors, and we always have safe space policy. Okay, and now I can see one raised hand. Sandra, can you please ask your question? Thank you.
Hello, it's like not a question, it's a follow-up for the question which was asked. I was thinking of that it's not just the documenting which is important, but also to have transparency and to have follow-up and to have monitoring in the affiliate which we have. Like if we have board member, like in my affiliate, I'm also the only paid part-time job in Wikimedia Levant. So I think it's the very important thing to have a monitoring for other people to transition of the knowledge. Like if anybody want to know what I'm doing, it's very good to share them my knowledge and share them the whole work which I do. Then if there is somebody else who will come after me, there won't be very hard thing to have my situation or my position, because they know what I'm doing and they can connect me. Also, the connection is very important to help moving forward. Like it's not a person who is important, but the affiliate or the whole work which is important. So even so, the documenting also is important. Yeah, I appreciate this point. I think it's important, but also to to have a person with your side to help you to move on. So this is my following up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I wonder, Rebecca and Shannon, if you have any thoughts about managing close leadership or conflict. I think that's probably a big topic for a lot of people here. So if there's anything you'd like to add, please do.
I'll go first. Luckily, we haven't had any issues like that in Ireland. But what I would say is that if you are having issues with that with the group that you're in, my idea would be the best way to approach it is maybe not head on. You don't want to go in there and invalidate everything that the group has been doing. So if you go in there and you say, oh, I think that everything that you've been doing is wrong, it's going to make them defensive immediately. Maybe try to suggest a project that you can head, something that you're interested in doing. Oh, I'd love to run this contest, or oh, I'd love to work with this group, and show them how you would do it. And then maybe they might be more amenable to accepting your opinion. You have to, and I don't want you to take this in a negative way, but you have to prove yourself to them. Just because you say that the way that you think it should be done is better, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to believe that, especially if they don't know you. So that might be a good way to try to get them to get to know you and to trust you, and then they'd be more willing to listen to you.
I mean, one thing that I would say, and it's something that's changed dramatically within our movement, is previously, if you were a different group within a region or a context, you would be pushed into working with the established group that was already there, the chapter, or language group or whatever. There's an awful lot more flexibility now. So like Claudia was talking about, she was able to look into accessing grants without having to go through the larger regional group. And I think there's a better understanding. So if we're talking about getting resources for a project that you want to do, you're not funneled as strictly. So I would kind of say, if there is something that you want to do that really doesn't gel or fit in with what the established group want to do, I think there are ways and means now. And I would be not necessarily upfront, but just saying that this is something novel or different that I want to do within my context, and that isn't being serviced or that isn't being addressed elsewhere. I'm not saying that that's a negative thing, because I think myself and Shannon and others in our group have thought about this quite a lot in Ireland, because we haven't had a strong Irish language presence. What would we do if a group in Ireland started approaching the grant system to get granting to do things in the Irish language in Ireland, and how would we feel about that? Equally, if Wikimedia UK started drawing down international funds to do work in the Irish language, how would we approach dealing with that? And I think now, once we're at a point of kind of maturity, we would probably be fine with it. If it had happened in, say, 2015, 2016, we probably would have taken it quite poorly, I would think, because we would feel kind of vulnerable, or as if, people were kind of trying to, push us away, push us out, push us away. But I think there's an understanding that different groups can work within a very small context, a very small country or a very small language group, and actually can do things separately, and that they all benefit, so long as there isn't, kind of an active antagonism. I think it's absolutely fine to say, I'm doing this project with these goals, and those are different from, say, another group that's already in. And I would say, kind of groups in Ghana seem to negotiate that particularly well from what I can see from the outside. So if there is something different that you want to do, I wouldn't shy away from it necessarily and looking for the resourcing for it if it is something that is not being done otherwise.
That's really good point, Rebecca. Thank you very much for your opinion. And sometimes we just have to be prepared for maybe different opinion than we have, or maybe negative feedback from community, unfortunately. But we just need to manage it, because at the end, we are doing what is good for our community and for the Wikimedia movement as well. Nanur, I'm sorry for maybe not pronouncing your name wrong, but I can see that you have hand raised.
Oh, you pronounced very well and beautiful. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and happy to see you all here. Before my question, I would to say to Constant, this is what happening with, I don't know with everyone, but at least with me. Actually, praying to not be in contact with the toxic people or toxic leaders or toxic teams. The solution is sometimes to leave, unfortunately, but it's not, does mean that you leave what you want to do. Leave just the place and the people. So it's not easy, but this is like that right now, unfortunately. So coming to the small affiliates. We discussed it, Claudia, before in Berlin between and Jessica. You were there too in the at the session. You remember that. What about the small affiliates and the strategy and implementation of the strategy? So where you are feeling yourself in implementation phase, especially with hubs, movement charter. Perhaps you are doing something with the skills. I'm mentioning just the initiatives that we are working on it right now in our movement. But where you are with the global strategy in our movement. Thank you.
I want to start just because you probably have more than we have. So I think this is something that in many affiliates is happening. The movement as a global movement is something sometimes exterior to the community. And there's also a language barrier there. We cannot translate everything to Romanian, and so the people don't feel like they can contribute if they don't speak English. And the other way around, once things are settled, getting the strategic direction and integrating it in how the user group would like to develop is a very hard process. If you're not a bigger organization, because again, the priority is to survive. The priority is to do as many activities as you can with the people that you have. And again, I don't know how it is in our country, in other countries, but in my country, if you want people to say they are productive, but actually not be productive, you make them work on a strategy on a paper and you just put it on a shelf. We don't believe in strategies as a society, unfortunately. So that's the general feeling in the user, the volunteers that I talk to, like they don't really believe in it. I strongly believe in it. That's why I'm here. Like if this movement to build the strategy would not have happened, I would not be here today. Because I really believe we have the capacity to contribute to a movement that is very needed in our society at this time. And it's very brave that we are making steps in this direction. Nevertheless, if we really want to make sure we don't leave anybody behind, there's a lot of work to be done to support like the affiliates to be able to integrate this in their structure, in their practices, in how they develop. And Nanur, this is a great question. Actually, I didn't think about it, but yes, it is a very good question. And it's a process that really small affiliates cannot do on their own, because that requires, again, time, resources, a commitment that is longer than 6 months or a year, which is the length of a grant. Yeah, hope I answered the question.
Thank you very much, Claudia. So we will ask one more question from Retro Board. It got most likes. So I will ask you, how do you get volunteers to become more engaged and active with the user group? So who would like to start answering first? Yeah, Rebecca.
I will jump in. I've learned this now from, and I think speaks to the documentation piece a little bit as well, in that I have used, and what Claudia was speaking to, I've used my experience outside of the Wikimedia movement to take liberal inspiration as to how to go about these things. And I have started, and to say recruit is probably a little bit too formal, but I have been far more open in my conversations with people that our group, that there is a standing invitation to join. And I think the fact that we hold our monthly meetings virtually, and that, it's kind of whoever comes engages in it, and, myself and Shannon and probably Kate and Eugene are probably the most common 4 that are always going to be there, but then we have kind of people who dip in and out. But when I'm talking to somebody that I know from, my previous life working in museums, or who I just get talking to about wanting to do an event, I'm quite blunt these days with saying, will I add you to the monthly invite? And it means that every month Google will tell them there's a meeting for you to come to, and the associated guilt with that I'm imposing upon somebody. I'll often get 3 or 4 emails going, oh, I can't come this month, but keep me on the invite. As like I like to think of them as my corresponding members. And I've learned that from from 2 different groups that I've been involved in. So WITS, which is Women in Technology and Science, which is a group in Ireland that's been going since 1991. It's over 30 years now, about women in STEM careers. And the current chair talks about kind of people being voluntold. So, kind of a portmanteau, putting volunteer and told together, so that people you're actively inviting people into your group. And it's not just a completely open invitation where you might say, I think you'd be really good at X, that I think, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this idea that we have for an event or a strategy or a campaign. And we've gotten quite a diverse group of people out of that. One of the things I will say, and kind of leaning back into the strategy question, is, and it's something I remember in Berlin was commented upon, in our group we have a lot of, most of us are probably 30 plus. There's not a lot of young people involved in our group. We do have a lot of women, but we have an awful lot of people who have doctorates, or, that are kind of high levels of education. And one thing that I've noticed, and possibly as I'm getting older, it's harder for me to attract younger people. And that's something that I'm possibly failing at. So I kind of work across my professional networks and draw people in that way, but that's not necessarily people who are 25 or younger. And I look quite enviously at an awful lot of people working particularly in African affiliates, who seem to be all 23 or younger, and I look with envious eyes upon that. I'd love to be able to draw younger people into the group. But I think definitely having an explicit invitation, and that horrible word of having an ask. So something, you're inviting somebody in and you have an idea of what they can do in the group. So it's not just come join us. It's, I want your opinion on this. I think, you know, could you get the word out about this? So you're already making them feel included and important within the group, and maybe thinking about what else they can bring or what other things they could bring into the group. We don't have tens of thousands of volunteers. We're a group of less than 20 and we kind of shift in and out, but that's kind of a nice amount of people to share a certain level of capacity across at the same time.
Thank you, Rebecca, very much. Yeah, it is difficult sometimes to manage volunteers and to keep them engaged and to show them what they are getting from if they volunteer and are not getting paid, as many of the things are getting paid today. Claudia, Shannon, do you have something to add for this question? We are a little bit short on time, so let's be efficient.
If I can just very briefly add this, I think volunteering capacity of countries differ greatly. If you're in a developing country, the number of people who can actually volunteer is smaller than in a developed country. And we need not to forget this. And volunteering, it needs to come with some kind of reward for the person. Usually that are like, you know, personal rewards. It's not money, definitely. So it has to be something, some other added value for their life, you know, for their time. And that's big. That's a big question. So, you know, if it can be a safe space for somebody who doesn't have enough, you know, who works in a toxic place and then volunteers in a safe space, that's something that we can offer. But it has to be an added value. And the more struggling the country is, the harder would be to keep the volunteers without actually providing quality value for their lives. And again, this is a big question. And don't minimize the struggles we've been in the past years. The stress that we are all under as a human race. It gets harder if you are in a developing country. It gets harder if your economy and your corruption are making your life harder every day. So be kind of gentle with yourself, do the best that you can, and the volunteers will see that and will stay with you.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Well, we have some really great questions in Retroboard, but in chat as well, but we are a little bit short on time. And now we will do one part of this learning clinic. I will share the link and Lucy can tell you a little bit more about it.
Thanks, Gorana. One of the things that I think is most useful for these events is the sharing of resources and knowledge and tools that we have found useful. So what we have put together is a Google document that you're all welcome to add useful tools to. Add what you use them for and add a link to them. And if you have time to put a little bit in about the purpose of it, that would be great. We are able to translate the text in the purposes column. So if you have anything you would like to add, something that you find useful, it doesn't have to be a specifically wiki tool. If it's something that has been useful to you in organizing an affiliate, in working closely with your community, we would love to hear about it. So that document is there for you to fill in. I can see people are in it already, all of the Google animals. Sandra says PET scan is not added. That sounds like something we can add immediately. Let's add PET scan. Some of the categories we have are things for statistics, which can be useful for stakeholder engagement and funding applications. I've certainly found that in my work with Wikimedia UK, program and events dashboards, tools for Commons, tools for GLAM, OpenRefine, of course, tools for Wikiloves competitions, how to search a Wikimedia hashtag, and various Wikidata tools. And I can see PetScan is going in as we speak. I like it on a Google document when we are all anonymous animals and we get to just add things. One last very brief question for the panelists. Are there any particular tools you couldn't live without in your work? Anyone you would like to share or indeed put in the document?
I don't have the tools. I have the project management course and time management course. Those are the two things that are very valuable to take in any language you find easy to learn in, and find the free resources for that, and allow time in your schedule to learn that. And one thing I want to mention before we leave, do apply for grants. And be bold when you do that, and you might fail, but take the feedback and do it again. Writing grants and finding resources, bringing resources to the community is a very valuable skill that will be rewarding for you if you do it. And since we have the foundation helping with, providing the grants, I think being brave about it and applying it's valuable.
Thanks, Claudia. Anything Rebecca, Shannon would like to add?
Well, I'll always give a shout out to the outreach dashboard. It keeps most of my metrics ticking over. One thing I wanted to mention is that, and I think Claudia has kind of mentioned it there, is a lot of the skills that we're talking about are transferable. They're not specific to the Wikimedia movement. And many countries or contexts or language groups may have, and I'll link to it, there is a group here in Ireland called The Wheel that provides training for charitable or non-profit groups. So an awful lot of it, I've done theory of change workshops, managing volunteers. So we don't necessarily always have to look to our own community to learn. And specifically, if you find there's particular challenges within your particular context, cultural, linguistic, whatever it is that you're finding doesn't really map or, kind of gel very well with the Wikimedia movement, that there's kind of like a clash there where things that you're encountering just aren't being dealt with through kind of various different systems. Getting to know your own kind of wider non-profit community can help, because they will more than likely be dealing with some of the same struggles that you are, and it'll help you find language and those allies around it to then be able to communicate some of those challenges that you face a little bit better, and help you kind of find the language and the words for it. So I think, yeah, definitely, you never know. Something my dad always told me is, you never know when you learn something when it'll become of use. You could learn something today and it feels like you're never going to use it, but in 5-10 years time. And one of the things is kind of a longer standing affiliate. I had conversations with potential partners in 2014, 2015 that didn't become a project until 2019, 2020. So you may feel sometimes like you're having the same conversations or not really getting anywhere, but these things, they exist in a very long timeline. So you never know when a conversation, when a partner, when an opportunity will come back to you. So never feel like having a conversation with somebody or trying a particular grant or trying a particular project is a waste of time. You never know when you're going to benefit from it in the future.
Absolutely. Shannon, do you have anything to add briefly before we move to closing?
Yeah, mine's very simple. I could not live without Google Docs and the whole Google platform, because it allows us as a group to be able to share our documents seamlessly as we've seen here, be able to edit them together. And it just makes our life so much easier.
Absolutely. Well, I see a question in the chat about recording. A recording will be available of this presentation. Before I move on to just a couple of checkout things, I would like to just thank our panel of speakers. If you would like to show your appreciation with Zoom reactions or a muted round of applause, thank you so much for being here with us today. I think we all learned a huge amount from that. And for a first clinic for Garana and I, that was a real joy to participate in. With that in mind, we have set up a little evaluation for you. It is 2 questions, so it won't take very long. Jessica is going to pop the link in the chat for you. It's a Mentimeter. If you would like to take just a couple of minutes to fill that in, what it will ask you, and it is available in all languages. Oh, all 3 of us have shared it. That's how enthusiastic we are, as all 3 of us have shared it. We will ask you a word that you will take from this session. So what is a word that sums up your thoughts about today? And a thing you would like to see in a future learning clinic about this topic. So if we were to revisit this topic of small affiliate governance, what would you like to talk about? What would you like to see in a future learning clinic? And we hope that we'll be able to provide that for you. So that's the Menti link in the chat, and it is available in all of the languages we're working in today. I'm going to pass to Gorana now to close off the session, and we can see here, oh, the Menti is live. That's so cool. Oh, that's really great. Gorana, I'm going to pass over to you if there's anything else you'd like to say, but it's just been a really fantastic session today, and we're here for your evaluation and your thoughts on this in the Menti. So thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Well, before we close the session, I would really like to thank our panelists today. So great shout out to Rebecca, Shannon, and Claudia. You gave us some really great perspective, and I think it was very useful for our participants, but also for me as well. I'm really happy that our discussion was really dynamic, that our participants gave us some really good questions, some really good points, and some really things to think about in the future. So I would really like to thank everyone one more time, and thank you for your support in our first learning clinic. I really do looking forward to do many of them with you. So let's stay in touch and let's connect.
Well, if you can think of any other changes you want.
And also, please tell us what would you like to do in the future.
Maybe also talk with that guy. I feel like he's having a stress response to how much he would work.
Thank you, everybody. And I just take the opportunity to thank Garana and Lucy for leading their first clinic. It was so great to just be in backstage and watch you. I'm so happy. This is what Let's Connect is about. It's led by community members, and we're here from the foundation to support and be in the back, making you shine. And that's what you did today. Thank you. And so a big round of applause to both of you. And yes, if you can send us your feedback in the Mentimeter, let's use the retro board. We'll share all this material after the session, but let's use it as a space where we continue this conversation, add ideas, solutions to other people's challenges. I invite the sharers to also look at the board and maybe spend some time answering some of the questions that went unanswered. So thank you, everybody, and I will stop the recording now. And you can open your mics. And I like bagunza, mess, connection at the end. So let's make a lot of noise as we close this session.
Yay.
Great things learned today. Big things learned. Big things learned. Well done, everybody.
Ciao, muchísimas gracias.
Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
From August.
Mabuhay.
Kachipon. Odaro, everybody. Akale. Bye-bye. Yeah. Bye, Jessica.
Bye, Daniel.
See
you soon.
I'm good. I'm good.
Bye.